Putin has gone completely crazy. I mean, Russia has always been using these tactics of sending as many people as possible to the battlefronts, but recently it became just insane, with absolutely no regards to human life. And all of this is so that they can claim this victory in this extremely symbolic city, but in return it turned out to be better for Ukrainians, because they initiated the Grand Stalemate, and this is where Ukrainians inflict maximum damage to Russians. But more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. And let's go straight to the point and see some most recent footage. And in this first picture, we can see the picture of Ramzan Kadyrov with his favorite horse, which recently has been stolen. The price of this horse is approximately $20,000, which will take several years for a regular Russian to save in order to have this amount of money, but Ramzan had this for fun. Then right here we have a very interesting picture, which is kept the statistics by one of Ukrainian sources of how many times the Russian propaganda claimed that they destroyed some kind of military equipment of Ukrainians. And just for example, as you can see, Russian propaganda already claimed that they were able to destroy 50 HIMARS missile systems, while in fact Ukraine only has 20 of them, which means that Russia destroyed 2.5 times the systems that Ukraine total has. And recently, Russians claimed that they were able to destroy another howitzer of Ukrainians, M77, which means that Ukraine now does not have any single one of them left. And I mean, just for example, you know, whenever you like a YouTube video, it shows the percentage of likes to dislikes. And for example, if there are no dislikes at all, it will be like 100%. So let's do a quick test all together. Can we all like this video and subscribe to my channel to see if I can get more than 100% likes, at least on the Russian side of YouTube. You can also follow my second channel, The Russian Dude Clips, where I post under 1-minute summaries, and my Instagram. All the links can be found down below. Alright, next we have the statement by the representative of the US force, who claims that Ukraine already uses smart bombs with the range of 72 kilometers. And what makes them smart is that as soon as they're released from the aircraft, they start to glide, and then this gliding becomes controlled, and they hit the target with a very high precision. And speaking about the Western weapons which are being used to Ukraine, Poland also announced today that they will be transporting another 10 more Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine this week. Alright, next we move to the country of Georgia, where recently there were protests about this law which was about to be adopted in the parliament about so-called foreign agents. In just very basic understanding, what it means is that if you as a public person is saying something that the government does not like, they can say, no, you're a foreign agent, we prohibit you to do anything in our country. And basically, whenever this bill was approved in the first reading, this is when the protests intensified. After this, the police and some politicians, they tried to stop these protests from evolving, and then America made a claim, is that if we see that you prohibit people from exercising their freedom of speech rights, we can impose sanctions on you. And ultimately, the president of Georgia, Salome Zurabishvili, she said that she supports the people, and she will prohibit this bill from becoming a law. I will continue to keep track of these events happening in Georgia, but unfortunately due to some geolocation restrictions, I'm not able to access some online content. And this is where Atlas VPN, the sponsor of today's video, comes in very helpful. But what's this even VPN? Well, this is a virtual private network, which will allow all of your internet traffic to travel safely through a protected and encrypted tunnel. And this way it protects you from the data breach, malicious software, and of course the Russian hackers. And I was able to get an incredible deal, so get ready for this. Not 50, not 75, but 83% discount for a 3-year deal with 3 months for free, and it only comes at $1.83 per month. And in order to activate this limited time offer, please use my link in the description. It's extremely easy. But wait, there is more. With Atlas VPN you can finally use the public Wi-Fi, you can finally see movies and TV shows on your favorite streaming platforms, such as Netflix, which recently have been unavailable due to geolocation restrictions. And so right now, if you want to become a part of the Russian Dude VPN gang, please use my link down below. Make sure to take advantage of this limited time offer, which gives you 83% discount, 3 months for free, and unlocks all the features of safe VPN browsing for only $1.83 per month. And if you are still not satisfied, there is a 30 days money-back guarantee. Thank you so much Atlas VPN for sponsoring this video, and now back to the program. Alright, and before we talk about the intense situation in the east, allow me to give you a very quick update from the south. And first of all, as you can see from this satellite image, Russians are building extensive fortifications and trenches systems in the Zaporozhye region. And this is in addition to the video we saw yesterday, where Russians were bringing their military vehicles all the way from Mariupol to Zaporozhye. So it does look like that Russians are preparing to defend Zaporozhye next. Then we go to Kherson region, and according to Ukrainian sources, they were able to destroy a Russian military tank T-72 in Chelburda. And later on, a Russian military base located on this island on Dnipro River has been destroyed by Ukrainian artillery as well. And then according to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, it looks like that Ukrainians intensified their offensive in the south, and pretty much Russians are getting it very complicated to maintain the control along the entire Dnipro River. Some very loud noises have also been reported in Crimea, in the Russian air base located in Belbek airport, and as you can see from this picture, it is located 227 kilometers from the front lines, which to be honest makes us think whether this was the work of partisans or Ukrainians once again are using long-range missiles. And in support for the second statements, Ukrainians are already allegedly using their own development of operational tactic missile systems called HRIM-2, and it has a range of up to 500 kilometers. And in case this is true, Ukrainians will be able to use it to attack the Crimean Bridge in the future, and also some pretty distant Russian military objects located on the territory of Russia. Alright, so very soon we'll talk about the intense situation around Bakhmut, but first of all allow me to share with you this documentary about the defenders of this city, which is almost 25 minutes long, and it does have English subtitles. And since I'm not able to show it all right here, I uploaded it for free on my Patreon. The link is down below. Alright, and now as promised, let's talk about the situation in the east. And first of all, we have this video from Kharkiv, where for the very first time since long time ago, there were street lights. Next we go closer to the front lines, and according to Ukrainian sources, they were able to destroy 3 Russian self-propelled artillery systems called Msta-B in Zmiivka. Then according to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, Russians increased their pressure to the west of Svatovi and Kreminna, but in return, Ukrainians were able to destroy 5 Russian tanks in Chernopopivka. And as we go more to the south, we can see that Russians were able to advance a little bit further to the northwest of Dibrova. Next we go to Bakhmut itself, where for the last couple of days Ukrainians were able to significantly slow down the advancement of Russians to the north of this settlement because they were constructing and reinforcing fortifications. At the same time, Ukrainians becoming more and more dominant to the south of Ivanovsky, and their counteroffensive becomes more successful against Russians. According to President Zelensky, at this very moment, Ukraine sees significant results coming from the battle for Bakhmut. And the reason for this, it is because it looks like that Russia does not care about the number of its losses. They just want to simply capture this city at all costs. And according to some Western sources, the losses of Russians are as much as 5-1 in comparison to Ukrainians, or some even claim it is 7-1. And just as an example, in the previous day alone, Russia estimatedly lost 244 soldiers, with many more being wounded. Because of this, according to Serhiy Chervatey, Russians are rapidly running out of their reserves, and now they have to use more valuable soldiers, such as for example instructors and the command post guards. But nevertheless, the situation in Bakhmut works in favor of Ukrainians, because it allows them to deplete Russian forces pretty fast. And this is just one example of Russians using these tactics, because to be honest, it does happen across the entire eastern front line, and we will talk about this in more details very soon. But first of all, right here we can see how the situation around Bakhmut front lines has changed in the last 24 hours. And as we move even more to the south, here is a brand new video from Marinka, which just once again shows the condition of this city, which used to be just a 10,000 people population, quiet neighborhood. And so yeah, back to Bakhmut, where to be honest the situation is just insane. According to the Minister of Defense of Russia, Sergei Shoigu, the city of Bakhmut is strategically important for Russia, because as soon as they'll be able to capture it, it opens them the directions to, as they call it, liberate, I highly doubt it, to liberate the rest of Donetsk region. That's what he said. And I don't think this is true, and this is not going to happen, right? In addition to that, Senior Shoigu made 3 extremely questionable statements, and at least one of them is definitely ridiculous. The first one is that the losses of Ukrainian army has increased by 40% in comparison to the previous month. The second one, which is the favorite statement of Putin, is that it is the West which does this war against Russia, and it does with the hands of Ukrainians by supplying them weapons. And the third statement that Shoigu made is that the main priority of the Russian army is to preserve the life of civilians and preserve the lives of the Russian soldiers. And while just talking about minimizing the losses, the Russian military tactics, to be honest, has not changed since the beginning of this war, which is sending as many people as possible on the front lines, but recently it just became even worse. It looks like that the Russian authorities and the Russian military commandment got very comfortable with wasting Russian soldiers' lives, because they see that their relatives or just people of Russia in general, they don't do any kinds of protests. And because of this, the newest Russian military tactics is with absolutely no regards to human life. Such as, for example, according to some Ukrainian soldiers, they see a small group of Russians running literally in the open field with no support from the tanks or armored personnel carriers, and obviously they become a very easy target for Ukrainians. But soon enough, after the first group is eliminated entirely, its place is taken by the second group. And by doing this waves after waves after waves tactics, what Russian military commandment expects is, it looks like, to simply exhaust the Ukrainian military, both physically, morally, and also in terms of the ammunition. Because of this, we do not see any progress in this so-called Russian Grand Offensive in the east, because right now they just keep sending these waves, hoping that Ukrainians will get tired soon. As for now, it is estimated that 150,000 Russian soldiers have been lost in this war, which is more than all the previous wars since the Second World War combined. In addition to that, Russia is losing significant number of its military vehicles, such as tanks and armored personnel carriers, or they're simply being captured by Ukrainians. But the Russian authorities, they do understand that it does take time to replenish military vehicles, while speaking about just people, you can always just quietly mobilize more. But because of going through hundreds of Russian soldiers every single day, Ukrainian soldiers report that these new waves of Russians who attack them the next day, their skills and their preparedness and training is already way lower than the ones before them. And because of wasting more soldiers that they can recruit, inevitably Russia will run out of forces until they do another partial mobilization. And as for now, it is estimated that in case it happens, it will only be approximately in the beginning of summer, because Russia does have its routine conscription cycle somewhere in April. And so in the meantime, the Russian authorities do not waste time, instead they brainwash people, potentially preparing for this another mobilization. And this happens with all these patriotic concerts, movies, and the statements from the government. And so yes, this situation with prehistoric Russian military tactics is perfectly seen in Bakhmut, where Russians cannot advance pretty much anywhere at all, while going through thousands of soldiers per week. At the same time, it does not look like that they learn from their mistakes, because there is no significant changes in these tactics. And while the Russian forces might dominate with numbers, they lack one extremely important thing, which is the combat spirit of Ukrainians. And eventually it will become the key factor in the ultimate Ukraine's victory. And if you want to follow it along with me, just please once again subscribe to my channel, it only takes one click. Thank you so much Atlas VPN for sponsoring this video, and also make sure to check my Patreon for this 25 minutes documentary and all the other uncensored footage. The links will be down below. Thank you so much for your attention, товарищи, and see you tomorrow.